Hi, it's Rebecca here from Precious Pages Papercraft, and I'm designing a layout today for Bramble Fox, and it's going to feature in the November Fox Zine. So I'm using products from the November Fox box, and I've picked out the Good Read title that comes with a little stack of books. It's got some lovely etched details on those books, just so you can see them there, really pretty. So I've pulled those out, and I've got a little photo there of myself and my little boy when he was a lot younger, reading what was his favourite book. It's called Aliens Love Underpants. It's just a lovely book. It's one of my favourites as well to sit and read with him, and we used to read it every day, and my husband captured this photo of us on the sofa. It's not a very good photo, it's really bad quality, it's quite blurry, so I've printed it in black and white. To find that helps a little bit with blurry photos. And I've pulled out the Simple Stories I Am collection. Now this is quite what I would call, for me anyway, quite a girly collection. The colours, the patterns, it's all a bit girly. But I love it. I think it's really pretty, and I've not really used it much. So I thought I'd pull it out today because some of the patterned papers go really well with the colour of these perspectives. So the Good Read title is kind of like a really pale dusky pink. And the stack of books is kind of bordering on almost like a mauve colour. Somewhere between like mauve and maybe aubergine kind of colour. That's how I'd describe it. But really subtle, pretty colours. And I thought they worked really well with this collection. And I've cut some hexagons from the patterned papers. Now for every hexagon I cut a second one from the same paper, slightly smaller, so that I could layer them up. And for me, I find, I don't know why, but I always I think that hexagons are more of a masculine kind of shape. So I'm using a girly collection, but by using the hexagons, I find that it kind of doesn't bother me as much, and I don't see it as girly. That probably makes no sense to anybody but me, but in my head that's kind of how it works. It's how I get around using a girly collection, by using what I would consider a masculine shape. So like I said, I've cut loads of different hexagons. I've used some metal dies for those, not in the traditional way. My die cutting machine is playing up at the moment, so I've just literally used the dies and drawn around them with a pen, and then had to hand cut them all out. And I'm now just distressing all the edges with a little distressing tool. This thing's brilliant. It's got about 8 different blades in it, I think. So if one goes blunt, I've got plenty more in there. If you don't have one of these, you can just use the edge of your scissor blade. It works exactly the same, although I'm quite heavy-handed with my distressing, so I find when I'm using the scissors, I do tend to tear the paper a lot more, whereas with this distressing tool, it's almost impossible to tear the paper. So especially for things that I want to heavily distress, I tend to reach for this more. Okay, so I've got all of those edges distressed now. I'm going to start layering these hexagons up, and I'm going to use some double-sided adhesive foam tape. So it's not sort of very dimensional, but it just brings that little bit of dimension in. And I'm just going to put a little bit behind each of the hexagons and layer them up to bring a bit of dimension to the layout. I kind of had an idea of how I wanted these to sit on the page. And I'm trying to keep them kind of roughly in the area that they were, so that I remember, because I actually really liked how I had it. So yeah, trying to keep those without moving them too much. Now I've printed my photo on normal photo paper. I find they can be quite flimsy, so I'm just going to stick it to some white cardstock and cut it out. I'm not going to have a border or anything at this stage. I just wanted to make that a bit more sturdy so that it didn't kind of bow in the middle when I layer it up on those hexagons. So that's why I've just added some cardstock behind that. And now I've done that, I decided I did want to have a little bit of a border. So I've just pulled out another of the patterned papers from the I Am collection. It's a black and white print one. So it gives it a little bit of contrast, bringing that black and white in against those patterned papers. And again, just distressing the edges of that. And then I took a little bit of time fiddling with those hexagons. I couldn't quite remember exactly how I had them, so I played for a little bit, and as you can see, I've decided on this configuration. I did also cut a couple more hexagons, so that pink dotty one on the right there, that wasn't there initially, so I've brought that in because that side of the page was feeling a little bit sparse, so I just cut a couple more. And I've pulled out a couple of distress inks. I've got Tattered Rose and I think it's Victorian Velvet, and I'm just mixing those together on a big bit of packaging. That's kind of what when you buy your pattern papers from places, they kind of tend to come in these plastic bags. So I've just mixed the colours on those, and then I'm using one of my Bramble Fox packaging. I never throw Bramble Fox packaging away. From your perspectives, always keep them. They're fantastic for the packaging technique. I've got a whole stash of them that I use. So I've just used the packaging technique to add some of that colour to the background. And I've mixed the two colours to kind of get a pinky, sort of dusky pink, bordering on mauve kind of colour to match those perspectives. And I've not gone too mad, I just wanted to add some detail in the background there. And then I'm going to bring the colours back in a little bit darker and add some splatters. And again, just mixing that on the packaging and using a paintbrush to add the splatters. Obviously I've watered that down a bit so that it's easier to splatter with. So now I've done my background, I've got to bring these hexagons back in. Now what you didn't see me do off camera, I was sneaky, when I was playing with the configuration off camera and I decided on it, I quickly took a photo of it with my iPad so that I knew how I wanted them. So at the moment I've got my iPad in front of me and I know exactly where I'm sticking these hexagons. And I'd drawn around them with a pencil very finely before adding my mixed media, so I could see roughly where they sat on the page as well. So that's helped me out. A little tip there, just use a pencil. Most of it gets covered up by the mixed media, and if you're sticking things back down in the same place, you won't see those pencil lines anyway. So all of those are now in place. I can work on embellishing. So I'm going to have my title over to the left there and the stack of books over on the right. And now I'm just going through the different elements from this collection to see what I've got. So I've pulled out a couple of chipboard elements there. I've got a little banner that said beautiful, a couple of flowers. Now I'm going through the die cut pack, pulling out some things. And I'm trying to use things that aren't too girly, but that would work with the patterned papers and the colours I've chosen on the background. So I wanted to pull out a couple of like that mauvey colour, some with a bit of the mustard colour in. So I've pulled that floral piece out there at the top there because it had that mustard colour in. And there was a stack of books in the ephemera pack. How cool was that? I was really chuffed when I saw that. And there's another one on the sticker sheet as well I'm just about to use. So yeah, that tied in really nicely with these perspectives. I was really pleased when I saw those. So I'm just choosing a few stickers here. I'm sticking them onto white cardstock, and I'm going to cut them out just to make them a bit sturdier. It also means I can move them around the page. Once I've sort of fiddled and faffed, they're usually stuck to everything, and I've changed my mind about where I want them and I can't get them off. So by sticking them on the cardstock, it just means I can move those around and they act more as kind of die cuts more than stickers. And like I said, it makes them a bit more sort of sturdy, and if I'm layering them up as well, that really helps if they're on the cardstock. So I'm just taking time to get those three pieces cut out there, and I've got a couple of stacks of books to go with my perspectives, and a couple of kind of word stickers there, like phrase stickers. And then I've got this gorgeous butterfly patterned paper. So again, I'm trying to stick to the colour scheme, and I'm just going to cut a few out for that are colours that are already appearing in those patterned papers. So kind of like the mustard colour. There's got that minty greeny blue kind of colour in those stacks of books. So I think I cut a couple of those out as well. Just trying to draw all the colours in, and then this is just kind of like a final couple of embellishments that will sit around those hexagons. So I think I'm actually pretty much there with my embellishing now. This layout, once I decided on the collection and the fact that I was going to use hexagons, it came together really quickly and everything kind of fell into place, which I love when that happens. It doesn't happen often enough, but yeah, this layout came together really quick. I think I was just so inspired by those perspectives that once I got going, and then I saw those stacks of books in the ephemera and sticker sheet, and I was just like really excited, and it just all came together really, really quick and really fun to create. So I'm just getting these bits stuck down now. I'm using foam behind all of them, apart from the chipboard pieces. So kind of a mixture of foam pads and craft foam that I'm just cutting to shape, depending on the size of what I'm sticking down, really. Those word banners, I tend to cut foam down to use behind those because it's a bit easier. And I love to have loads of dimension on my pages, so I do quite often use a lot of craft foam behind things. And then with the butterflies, I just stick the centres of the bodies down so that it leaves the wings flapping free, and it just makes them look really realistic to me, like they've just landed on my page. Obviously they'll flatten out in my album, but I just love the way they look, just like, kind of like they've just flown down and landed on my page. I'm just getting my perspective done now. I'm using glossy accents. I always use glossy accents for my perspectives, but I've also added some foam behind parts of the title because it's sitting overlapping the hexagons that are already quite dimensional. With that foam behind them, I needed something to raise the centre of the perspective up, so I've added some foam pads behind the centre of it. Then I've decided I'd like to have a border around the edge of my page. So I'm going to use this kind of mauve coloured paper. It's got a really faint butterfly pattern on it. I thought this worked really well with the colour of the acrylic for the stack of books that you get in the Fox box that I've used. Works really well with that piece, so I've picked this colour out. I've also used it with some of the hexagons as well, so it ties it all together nicely. So I've trimmed 1/4 of an inch off of all 4 sides of my cardstock, and I'm going to distress the edges. I'm going to kind of tack that down in place with a little bit of double-sided tape, and then off camera I'm going to go around the edge with my sewing machine and add just a white running stitch all the way around to stick that down, and also just bring a bit more texture to the page. I love having machine stitching on my layouts. So you'll notice in the close-ups at the end that I've got that machine stitching around the edge. And what I also do, and I don't know why I didn't think about turning the camera on, I think I got a bit carried away, I add a few sequins as well. So it's a mix by Spiegel Mum Scraps called Tea Rose Party, I think, or Tea Rose Garden. And I pull out the shades of pink and almost mauve from those. And I just add them, you can see there, in little clusters of 2s and 3s around the page just to finish it off. And that's me done. So thank you very much for joining me today. I hope this has given you some inspiration on using these perspectives from your November Fox box. Obviously this will feature in the Zine as well, so you'll get a good close-up photo of it there if you'd like to recreate it. And I'm always around if you've got any questions or anything. But thank you very much for joining me, and I'll see you next time.